The rain hammered against the windows of the sprawling Chicago mansion as 72-year-old tech mogul William Hartford sat alone in his marble-floored study, staring at a medical report that would change everything. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months to live, maybe less. The words blurred together as tears he hadn't shed in decades finally came. All his billions, all his success, and he was facing the end completely alone. In the kitchen 3 floors below, Rosa Martinez was preparing what she didn't know would be one of her last meals for the man who had employed her for 8 faithful years. At 55, Rosa had weathered her own storms. She had immigrated from El Salvador 23 years ago with nothing but hope and her 10-year-old daughter Carmen. Through countless 16-hour days cleaning houses across the wealthy North Shore suburbs, she had built a life one scrubbed floor at a time. William had always been different from Rosa's other employers. While most barely acknowledged her presence, he would ask about her day, remember her daughter's name, and even learned a few Spanish phrases to make her smile. When Carmen graduated nursing school 2 years ago, William had quietly paid off her student loans without Rosa knowing until months later. When Rosa discovered what he had done, she cried for hours, overwhelmed by such unexpected generosity. But lately, something had changed. William seemed distant, lost in thought. Rosa noticed he barely touched his meals and spent hours staring out windows instead of taking his usual business calls. She worried about him the way she worried about everyone she cared for, with the fierce protectiveness of someone who understood suffering. That evening, William climbed the stairs to his bedroom with unusual difficulty. Rosa was turning down his bed when she noticed him swaying slightly. Without thinking, she rushed to steady him, her small frame supporting his tall figure as she guided him to sit on the edge of the bed. "Mr. Hartford, are you feeling all right? You look so pale today." William looked up at this woman who had cared for his home and somehow, without him realizing it, had begun caring for his soul. The kindness in her dark eyes was almost too much to bear. He pulled the medical report from his jacket pocket and handed it to her with shaking hands. "Rosa, I need you to know. I'm sick. Very sick." Rosa's English had improved dramatically over the years, but medical terminology still challenged her. She stared at the papers, recognizing enough words to understand the gravity of what she was reading. Her hand flew to her mouth as tears filled her eyes. "Oh, Mr. Hartford. No, no, this cannot be true." The next morning brought a strange request that would puzzle Rosa for weeks. William appeared in the kitchen earlier than usual, dressed in his finest suit despite having no meeting scheduled. He pulled out his black American Express card, the one Rosa had seen him use for everything from private jets to charity donations. "Rosa, I need you to do something for me. I want you to take this card and buy whatever you need. Whatever you want. Whatever Carmen needs. There are no limits." Rosa stepped back as if the card were on fire. She had cleaned for wealthy families who flashed money carelessly, but this felt different. This felt desperate. "Mr. Hartford, I cannot take this. This is not right. I am your housekeeper, not your family. You are more family to me than anyone I have left, Rosa. Please. It would bring me peace." For 3 days, the credit card sat untouched on Rosa's kitchen counter at her small apartment in Cicero. She would stare at it while drinking her morning coffee, wrestling with emotions she couldn't name. Carmen, now working as a pediatric nurse at Children's Memorial Hospital, found her mother crying over the plastic rectangle one evening. "Mommy, what is wrong? Why are you crying over a credit card?" Rosa explained everything through her tears. Carmen held her mother's weathered hands, the same hands that had worked tirelessly to give her a better life. "Mommy, if Mr. Hartford trusted you with this, maybe you should use it. But use it in a way that honors both of you." The next morning, Rosa made a decision that would change everything. She drove to William's mansion with a determination she hadn't felt in years. She found him in his study, looking friendlier than ever, surrounded by legal documents and what appeared to be final arrangements. "Mr. Hartford, I will use your card. But I want you to come with me. William looked up, surprised. He had expected Rosa to buy things for herself and Carmen, perhaps send money to family in El Salvador. He hadn't expected this. Where are we going, Rosa? To show you something beautiful. Their first stop was Children's Memorial Hospital, where Carmen worked. Rosa had called ahead, and her daughter met them in the cancer ward. As they walked through the pediatric oncology unit, William saw what Rosa saw every time she visited Carmen at work, children fighting battles that would break most adults, yet still finding reasons to smile. Rosa approached the head nurse with William's credit card and made a request that left everyone speechless. She wanted to pay for every family's medical bills for the next month. Not just the co-pays or the extras, but everything. The procedures, the medications, the treatments that insurance wouldn't cover. The nurse's hands shook as she processed the transaction. 43 families received a miracle that day. William watched Rosa move from room to room, hugging children, speaking to parents in both English and Spanish, bringing hope to places where hope was a luxury most couldn't afford. Their second stop was Rosa's old neighborhood, where she had lived when she first arrived in America. The community center where Carmen had done her homework while Rosa worked late was struggling to stay open due to funding cuts. Rosa walked in with William and quietly paid their operational costs for the next 5 years. But their final stop revealed the true depth of Rosa's heart. They drove to a modest house in Pilsen, where Rosa's elderly neighbor Mrs. Chen lived alone. Rosa had mentioned Mrs. Chen often over the years, a retired seamstress whose husband had died in a construction accident, leaving her with medical debt that consumed her social security check. Rosa knocked on the door and embraced Mrs. Chen like family. In broken English mixed with Spanish and Chinese phrases they had taught each other, Rosa explained that she wanted to pay off Mrs. Chen's debts and set up a fund for her care. William stood in that small living room, watching Rosa hold Mrs. Chen as the elderly woman cried tears of relief and disbelief. In that moment, he understood something that had eluded him through decades of business success. Wealth wasn't about accumulation. It was about circulation. It was about being a conduit for kindness. That evening, back at the mansion, William sat across from Rosa in his formal dining room for the first time in 8 years. She had always eaten in the kitchen, maintaining the professional boundary between employer and employee. But tonight felt different. Rosa, do you know what you did today? I bought some help for people who needed it, Mr. Hartford. Nothing special. William shook his head, struggling to find words for emotions he had never learned to express. As a young man building his tech empire, he had been ruthless, focused only on profit and growth. Success had brought him everything except what mattered most, the ability to see people the way Rosa saw them. You didn't just spend money today. You showed me what it means to be wealthy. Not in dollars, but in purpose. Over the following weeks, William began to change in ways that surprised everyone, including himself. Instead of hiding in his study, he started joining Rosa on her trips to help others. Together, they visited homeless shelters, food banks, and struggling families throughout Chicago. William learned the names of the people Rosa helped, heard their stories, and began to understand that true legacy wasn't measured in stock prices or real estate holdings. When William's cancer treatment began, Rosa insisted on driving him to every appointment. She would sit in hospital waiting rooms, teaching him Spanish phrases to pass the time, sharing stories of her journey from El Salvador, and somehow making the sterile medical environment feel less frightening. One afternoon, as William received chemotherapy, he watched Rosa knitting blankets for the other cancer patients. Her fingers moved with practiced efficiency, creating warmth and comfort for strangers who were fighting the same battle he was fighting. Rosa, why do you do this? Help people you don't even know? Rosa paused in her knitting and looked at him with those kind eyes that had seen so much hardship yet remained full of love. Mr. Hartford, when I came to this country, I was scared and alone. But people helped me. Mrs. Rodriguez gave me my first cleaning job. Mr. Patterson let me bring Carmen to work when I couldn't afford childcare. Sister Maria at the church taught me English for free. Kindness is like a chain, no? Each person passes it to the next person. As autumn turned to winter, William's prognosis improved dramatically. The doctors couldn't explain it medically, but William knew the truth. Having something to live for, having people to help and a purpose beyond himself, had given him a strength that medicine alone couldn't provide. On a snowy December morning, William made an announcement that would shock the business world. He was donating 90% of his wealth to establish the Rosa Martinez Foundation for Community Kindness. The foundation would be managed by Rosa and Carmen, ensuring that kindness would continue to flow through Chicago's communities long after William was gone. Rosa tried to refuse the honor, insisting that she was just a housekeeper who didn't know how to run a foundation. But William had already thought of everything. He had arranged for business managers, legal advisors, and financial experts to support her. Her job would simply be to continue doing what she did naturally, seeing people who needed help and finding ways to help them. The first Rosa Martinez Foundation event was held at William's mansion in the spring. Instead of the formal charity galas that had once filled the house, this was a celebration of community. Mrs. Chen was there, healthy and smiling. The families from the cancer ward attended, their children playing in William's gardens. Carmen spoke about her mother's legacy of kindness, bringing tears to every eye in the room. William stood at his study window that evening, watching Rosa clean up after the event with the same careful attention she had always shown. But now he saw her differently. She wasn't his employee, she was his teacher, his inspiration, and his friend. As summer arrived, William celebrated his first year of remission. The doctors called it miraculous, but William knew better. He had learned that healing came from more than medicine. It came from purpose, from connection, from the simple act of caring for others. Rosa still worked at the mansion, but now she spent her days coordinating foundation activities from William's study. They had become partners in kindness, planning ways to help their community and beyond. The small act of trusting Rosa with his credit card had grown into a movement that touched thousands of lives. On the one-year anniversary of that rainy night when Rosa first learned of William's illness, they sat together in the garden as the sun set over Lake Michigan. Rosa was teaching William to knit, laughing as his large hands fumbled with the delicate needles. "Mr. Hartford, do you remember when you gave me your credit card?" "Of course. Best decision I ever made. I was so scared. I thought you were testing me, trying to see if I would steal from you." William set down his knitting needles and looked at this remarkable woman who had changed his life in ways she would never fully understand. "Rosa, you did something that day that no amount of money could buy. You showed me that the greatest purchases aren't things at all. They're acts of love, moments of kindness, and the decision to see every person as worthy of care." Today, the Rosa Martinez Foundation continues to operate throughout Chicago and beyond, touching lives in ways both large and small. William Hartford, now in his 4th year of remission, works alongside Rosa every day, having discovered that the best return on investment isn't measured in dollars but in smiles, in tears of joy, and in the knowledge that kindness, once started, never truly ends. Their story reminds us that we all have credit cards of sorts, not necessarily plastic ones, but resources of time, attention, and care that we can choose to spend on others. Sometimes the most powerful purchases we can make cost nothing more than the decision to see someone's need and respond with love. The next time you have the opportunity to help someone, remember Rosa and William's story. Remember that kindness is indeed like a chain, connecting us all in ways we might never fully understand. Every act of compassion creates ripples that spread far beyond what we can see. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to Pure Kindness Stories for more inspiring tales that remind us of the goodness that exists in our world. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that kindness is always the right choice, and that sometimes the greatest wealth comes not from what we accumulate, but from what we give away. Together, we can keep the chain of kindness growing, one story at a time.